Last month, we had the pleasure of looking at senior exhibitions from Anna Poon and Eric Pan. This month, we have a similar honor. Instead, looking at the senior work of Brooke. I can get it right. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's try again. Last month, EVA had the pleasure of looking at the senior exhibition. Wait, my eyes are going everywhere. Okay. Last month, we had the pleasure of looking at senior exhibitions from Anna Poon and Eric Pan. This month, we have a similar honor, instead looking at the work of Brooke Weatherup and Isabel Reynoso. These seniors have spent the past 4 years in the visual arts department making simply amazing pieces. So let's let them into the Zoom room and talk a little bit about their experiences here at Bishop's. Pause. I'm restarting the recording now. I'm going to edit anything out. So if you want me to edit anything or if we have a bunch of filler, that will be fine. Okay, Brooke, Isabel, let's do this. So we're going to start with some introductions. Just introduce yourself, what kind of art you like to do at Bishop's, how long you've been doing art at Bishop's, that whole shebang.
Okay, so my name's Brooke, obviously. I'm a senior and I've been doing art since I was a freshman. I did drawing and painting 1 and 2, and then I realized that was not my skill set. So I switched to ceramics, which I've been doing since I was pretty little. And I wanted to get back into that. And then I've been doing ceramics. I started in ceramics 1 sophomore year and have done it up through the AP studio this year.
Yeah, and I'm Isabel, and I'm also a senior, and I'm doing photography. So I started that when I was a sophomore, and I just did like 1 and 2, like I guess to just like start off, and then I continued for the second semester of my junior year, but I kind of just like kept it up. But that was like the third like photography class they have, so they have like 1, 2, and 3, and then after that, now I'm in AP like studio art, but I'm still doing photography.
Thanks, people. It's definitely nice to have some non-painting mediums, I think, going on here because your work is really awesome. So expanding off of that sort of idea and your introductions, can you both just kind of go into what sort of art you like to make, whether that's expanding on sort of the medium you do or the style you do, what you've been exploring and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I do mostly all of my work now is in ceramics. Um, and I've mostly just been experimenting with form and function because I like when the ceramic pieces have a purpose but are also decorative. So obviously when I first started, I was just making like little bowls, and when I learned how to make stuff on the wheel, I was just making little bowls at a faster rate and they were a little bit more polished. But I've been mostly experimenting with continuing to expand on how creative I can be with the things I make and have them still be relatively functional, although obviously not all of them are. Um, and I've also been exploring a lot with different glazes because in the old ceramics programs I did, sorry, in the old ceramics program that I did, I didn't have access to the same amount of glazes because it was again like a middle school program. And so I've been experimenting with different like textures in the glaze and different combinations of it, which it doesn't sound super interesting, but to me it's very very interesting, and it's been yielding some really cool results.
For like my photography, I mostly focus on like lighting and like focus. So like it depends on kind of like what I really like want. Like if I want to have a project and just do like, like I'm gonna like I would have like times I'm just like standing in a little roundabout and like just wait, and like if you like try to get everything and you like like you can get all the lights of all the cars like going through, or like if there's a light on the ocean, like or that specifically at sunset, or like getting stars, and like being able to get like the light that we normally see in like a regular day on cameras just a little bit different. Like you can't really like get the same like perspective. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do. Or like how the picture changes depending on the focus of like how centered or like what actually is the subject of the picture. So I feel like that's kind of what I really play around with. But apart from that, it's just, I guess, to have fun and see what I find. And it's always different. Like I don't really have like a main thing that I'm looking for when I'm taking pictures, but I always find something new.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of fun, it sounded like Brooke originally with what she was trying and drawing and painting 1 and 2 was not having a lot of fun. So that kind of leads us into the next question, which is how your art has developed in your time at Bishop. So what you've learned from it or how your perspective has changed.
Yeah, so definitely so freshman year I joined drawing and painting one, and enjoyed it. I did have fun with it. I was just realizing that it was maybe not the path that I should take going forward. Um, so I think it was after we did oil painting, that was when I realized that this was not gonna be for me. So I
Yeah.
decided to go back and see what I could do with my, childhood and middle school love of ceramics, and that definitely helped me develop it a lot. And actually sophomore year, I think I got really into different forms and really realized that I liked hand building, which is when you don't build things on the wheel. Because I ended up getting a sports injury, which left me unable to use my arm for a little bit because it was in a sling. And so I was hand building coil pots with like one hand pretty much on like a little wheel thing that I was like spinning. And it ended up being some of my favorite pieces that I've made. So I've now kind of moved away from the wheel, which I think is a good thing, especially considering I don't have a ceramic studio in my garage. I am building stuff on my kitchen counter at the moment, which I don't think my parents are too happy about, but it's definitely given me some more time to kind of figure out what I like to do. And so I've definitely been experimenting a lot more with building stuff by hand, which I think I might not have had I had a very traditional like acceleration through the pro.
Yeah, Brooke, you didn't just have a ceramic studio at home. Come on, get on board.
No.
Everyone does stuff.
For me, I feel like I've always kind of been like, well, the first two like photo 1 and 2 at Bishops, like Mr. Allen would just give you like assignments and he is like, okay, so this is aperture, like this is like what your focus is, like this is the grid of like where you're gonna take the pictures, and like he's like just do it on the squares on the sides, and like you have like your little like 9 squares and you try to get everything like the way that I guess he's telling you. Like he'll give you a lot of liberty, but he'll like give you assignments and you learn to use Photoshop. And like I have some pictures that like you take a bunch of the background, then you put like a subject in it, and then like I have like my sister just like floating in the garden or like just a random stuff, because you can like Photoshop anything. So that was kind of like our little projects, or like I had like a bunch of me in one picture just like sitting on a wall, and I had to like take pictures of like me going back and forth and like put myself in them again. But like those were just kind of like projects to learn like how things work. And now like even like today I look back and I'm like I forgot like how to do a lot of that stuff, because like now I'm just kind of like working on what I want and I don't really have to like remember the names. Like I like just take pictures. I'm like, yes, I'm like in manual when I'm taking pictures, but I'm not really thinking of like, oh, I'm gonna put the focus on like this, or like I like this specific like size, or like when I like open my lens, like I want it like for this amount of seconds. Like I just kind of like do it without really like thinking about it, which is I guess with like time, like you just get used to it, and like you don't actually have to like ask your teacher like how specific they want like the measurements or like what they want in the pictures, and like you start figuring out what you want for yourself, which I guess is just like growing to like do your own work instead of having someone else tell you like what you need to do to learn.
Definitely. And speaking about pushing yourselves and kind of going outside of your comfort zone in that sort of way, you both have some really interesting and experimental work in the exhibition coming up. So, what piece in that exhibition do you think you've learned the most from and why?
So for me, it's definitely this bowl that I made that is made out of puzzle pieces, or ceramic puzzle pieces that are all like attached. There's a bunch of holes. I don't really have a name for it. Because if I had tried to come up with anything, it probably would have just been a really bad pun about the word piece. So I decided not to name that one, but that piece took me a really long time. I started it in January of 2020, and I finished it in November of 2020. Yeah, because I had to abandon it. It got trapped at the school when everything shut down. So that was definitely like I missed it, and it was just hanging out there waiting for me to come back to it. But that piece I definitely learned the most from because it's one of the more delicate pieces that I've made. I was terrified every time I touched it. I thought it was going to fall apart in my hands. Um, but I just had to be very confident in the detail work that I was doing to make sure that it looked very much like it was just kind of balancing there, when in fact I did put a lot of slip and made sure that it was secure over and over again because I was so scared a piece was going to fall off or something was going to happen. And I think it just showed me that there is the limits for like making stuff with ceramics is I haven't even found like the beginning kind of. I have so much more that I think I can try to do. And so I think really making that piece that was definitely a piece that was very out of my comfort zone, but one that was really important to me to make, definitely showed me that there is a lot more that I can do with it, and it's definitely one of the pieces I'm most proud of. It took so long to make and even longer to glaze because I had to paint each individual puzzle piece twice and with like a tiny brush. I have time lapses of me just sitting there like hunched over it with a tiny brush, but it's definitely, yeah, that's the piece that I'm most proud of and the piece that I definitely learned the most from and that tested my patience.
I don't really think I have like a piece I really specifically like learned the most from. Like I've had like times where like I have like just gone out like for a full day and like try to get like specific pictures I wanted. But like usually it's like it's not really like with art, like with like photography, it's not you can't like you're not sitting there for a time lapse or like the maximum of time like I've really like taken a picture that's like when like if it's like dark and you're trying to get like one specific light to like show you have like to stay there for like a minute and like you have your little stand and like you set up your camera and like you make sure everything is like good and like you like take this specific picture and I usually try to take like 2 or 3 since like I don't want to like mess it up since like I kind of like set up everything up perfectly. But for those kinds of pictures, I didn't really put any of those in this exhibition since that was kind of like some stuff I did last year and I wanted to change it a little bit. And now it's more like you take the picture and like you kind of know what you want and then like you'll focus it, you'll set it up, and then you're done. Like you can't work on it again. Like once you're finished, you're finished. So I feel like that's like the difference with like if you do like a painting or ceramics, you can keep on adding to it or you can keep on like retouching until you want it to be perfect. With a picture, like you take the picture, you have it, and you're like done. Like you really can't move it anymore. So you have to like do it in that moment and make sure everything's like set up and exactly how you want it. And like that's the way it is. And you have that like it's a little snapshot of a second and it's gonna stay like that forever. So I feel like that's I guess like the struggle could be like looking back at pictures in the at night or like in the afternoon, like after you actually did take them, and like maybe not having it exactly the way you wanted it to be. But I usually try to get like everything like I'm pretty good at just like making sure I have everything I want before I like call it a day. But you really can't like regret anything with photos because like it's just the way it is, and you're like you can't change it.
That's a really interesting insight as well, and I think it's definitely a different approach than, for example, someone who does ceramics like Brooke, or even me who does painting would feel, because we'll spend hours and hours on one thing, but photography is so in the moment and it's a completely different concept. So thank you for that insight. And just for our last question here today, let's end it off on a good note, just with basically your 30-second elevator pitch for what your favorite part about making art is.
All right, so my elevator pitch would be that, well, I'm gonna pitch ceramics. Isabel can pitch photography. I would say I love doing ceramics because I can just go into the studio and I have to focus all of my attention on the piece. Otherwise, something's probably gonna go wrong. Like you need to, especially with the detail work that I do, my pieces look really simple, but they take hours, weeks, months to do. And so all of that detail work requires me to put all of my focus into that, which is something that I think I need. And it's really relaxing. Like I'll just put on music and like start working on a piece and I can't think about anything else or like worry about anything else because then I have to take myself away and I can't work on both at once. Um, and so it's just very relaxing and in the end, you get a really cool piece that you put a lot of effort into, and a lot of times has a kind of a funny story behind it, so
I think for me, like now it's like everyone's kind of their own little photographer, which is I think is fun. But like for like the biggest like elevator pitch, I guess you could say, is like you're kind of like saving a memory. Like of course, if you want to get like Miss Webster keeps on telling me like, or you can make like a picture like an actual painting. Like if you play around with it, like you can actually like see if you could. There's also this like thing called like light painting, and like you can actually like turn your picture like into kind of a painting. But it's really like getting a memory, like for anyone, like if you want to have like something and like keep it forever, like it's like you're taking a second and you have it for years to come. So like it's like a little album or just like having your own like memories, but like sometimes it's not as clear in your head. So like it's like looking back. So that I feel like it's like the easiest way to like see what someone is like experiencing through like an actual like digital image. Like with a painting, you're trying to like you're expressing kind of what like the artist is trying to communicate, but with like a picture, it's like the exact same thing. So you're really seeing the same thing. It's just it's hard to explain, but I feel like the simplest way to like tell it for like anyone that just wants to take pictures is like you're saving memories, and when you're old, like you'll see it later and you'll be in that moment again.
Definitely. Well, thank you to both so much for taking time out of your day to do this. Just as a note for everyone watching, make sure to either go check out our video version of Brooke and Isabel's exhibition or see it in person, which is definitely more fun in the library. And again, thank you both for doing this and hope to see you both soon. Okay, great. That's it, everyone. We did it. Done.